everyone. Welcome to Credential Up Houston. My name is Margaret Fisher. I begin the show today with a quote from Marcus Aurelius, who said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." We are fortunate at this time to talk to a community college leader who, perhaps like so many others, can attest to the truth of that statement. Our guest is Dr. Lonnie L. Howard, president of the Lamar Institute of Technology in Beaumont, Texas. Dr. Howard, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for your invitation.
You are so welcome. So tell us about your journey to success and perhaps how Marcus Aurelius' perspective is applicable.
Well, I think it's applicable in many ways as I think about my journey. And in that, it was not by design, not foreseen, not by any measure did I ever see myself being as fortunate as to serve in this capacity. I am one of 7 children. And as I shared in my bio that's on our website, that I am a product of absolute poverty and abject poverty. And it was really difficult growing up, but what made it better for me and my siblings were we came from a place of love. And despite we grew up in a 4-room shack, no indoor plumbing, no running water, because of this sense of love, that we somehow had this notion of hope. So that was really Dr. Ford Fisher, the thing that kind of helped me to kind of sustain and be on this journey.
That statement that you made really touches very deeply, because the hope is something that people really need to cling to. And if you lose that sense of hope, then you feel like there is nothing really to live for. Aurelius thanked his grandfather him good character and avoidance of bad temper. So as you make reference to your parents and the love that you experience with your siblings, who were the influencers for you?
That's actually a great question, and one that I have often thought about. And aside from you, and we'll talk more about that later, as I evolved through my life and got on this journey from being a janitor, serving in the military, and again, earning 5 college degrees at the age of, or starting this academic journey at the age of 36 with an associate degree. I had many kind of role models, mentors along the way, and people who influenced me. So none greater than my mom, and who said it doesn't really matter where you start from. The important thing is where you finish. So again, that goes back to that whole notion of hope. And so again, not one, but many. And I still continue to have some.
Absolutely. You know, it's so important, as you were making reference to your military service as well and the connections you made there. And by the way, thank you so very much for your service to our country. You know, good character and avoidance of a bad temper are both very, very important. And that's something that you learn along the way as well. So tell us, what are your thoughts about that and why it's so important to maintain character and avoidance of bad temper? And that gets to the emotional intelligence that in many instances we teach our students.
It's very important in terms of good character and bad temper. First, I'll just kind of talk about the notion of good character. And despite my mom only had a 5th grade education and my dad only had a 3rd, they were wise enough to teach me and my siblings in terms of good character. Some very fundamental basic principles that I think our society has now kind of grown away from. And that is to let your word be your bond. In other words, to be ethical, to remain honest, and have a sense of compassion in terms of the avoidance of bad temper, to really make sure we allow people to have some sense to make errors, because no one is perfect and we all deserve another chance. So those are just some of the basic fundamental things that I was taught, and my siblings, in my little small town back home.
Well, yes, I understand. And, that is really incredibly important as well for the young people who are coming along and those who are in college to be cognizant of as well, that good character and the avoidance of a bad temper. Asa Hilliard, the late Asa Hilliard, an Egyptologist, came to Houston, and we had him at the college to speak. And he said, it's really important for us to keep in mind that teachers are always teaching and students are always learning. And I think that's very true. We don't always have to say what we mean. We have to really live what we mean in terms of our behavior and character. So now, how difficult is that to apply to today with COVID-19, when so many people are under stress and they're experiencing that duress?
I think it's profoundly important, despite COVID-19 and out of COVID-19. And you said something that I thought was really profound, that teachers are always teaching. And there's an old proverb to say that people really kind of they really don't care about how much you know, they really care about how much you care. And so with that in mind, the best way to really model these types of behaviors is to actually live them, to walk them, to breathe them. And to me, as I think about this in terms of higher education, this concept that you're speaking of, it really does speak about just a notion of civility that we want to have on our college campuses, in our college classrooms, and really the importance of how we behave as a society.
So true. And so that is modeled from the very top. And it goes through the administration based upon the behaviors, the attitudes of the leader. And so can you share additional lessons for others from your experience, your early childhood experience, and then the education that you began to pursue vigorously in your late 30s? Any additional lessons learned?
Well, again, and I tell people, and thank you so much, I think that's a great question. And I tell people when they ask, hey, look, how, kind of what's the framework for this? And well, first, I don't ascribe to the notion of pulling myself up by my own bootstraps, because I simply believe that a self-made man or woman is a half-made man or woman, that I am the product of the generosity, the kindness, and the values of so many other people. And so these are the principles that guided me throughout this journey. And I said this journey, and they still continue to guide me today. You alluded to the importance of this dynamic as being college administrators. Well, for myself, and as my background reflects, people say, well, what do you do? I say, well, I am a college president by profession, but I am a janitor by vocation. And that was my first real job. And so I really don't get far away from that, because one, it keeps me humble. Two, it really kind of helps me think about the social and economic challenges that many community college students are facing today.
You're right. You're absolutely right. That is great. And I would like for us to continue in thought, but what we'd like to do, Dr. Howard, is to take a break. When we return, we will discuss how your personal philosophy of education helps to guide your work as president of your college as you work with your faculty, staff, students, and the community. So please stay with us.
If a natural disaster shows up at your doorstep, you can't just turn it away. That's why it's important to prepare for emergencies before they show up. Go to ready.gov/plan to find the tools and tips you need. And make a plan today.
Houston Community College is safe, clean, and open for learning. We're sanitizing our classrooms and reducing class sizes so you can feel good when you come back. Register now at hccs.edu/college your way.
Welcome back to Credential Up Houston and our discussion with Dr. Lonnie Howard, president of the Lamar Institute of Technology located in Beaumont. Dr. Howard, your philosophy is, and you mentioned it earlier, and I quote, "It doesn't really matter where you start in life. I believe with hard work, integrity, and education, anyone can achieve some measure of the American dream." So I'd like for you to tell us how your philosophy of education guides you in your work as president. And you were making reference earlier to clinging to the values of what janitors do, even though a president now of a college. So tell us about that and how persons can aspire and they can also achieve.
Dr. Ford Fisher, that's the crowning jewel of this conversation, and that is inspire and aspire. That is built within this framework of hope. Because I remember, and I tell people, I know what it feels like to be hungry, right? And I'm not saying like, oh, I miss lunch or I miss dinner. I'm saying going for days without eating. I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to be poor. I just know some of the difficulties that sometimes life can throw at us. So as I lead our college here in Beaumont, I am never far removed from those factors. And I think it lends itself to a sense of compassion, a sense of understanding, not just with our faculty and staff and our students, but even with the community that we serve. And I try to be relatable and identifiable. But for me, everything that we touch, everything that we do is about student success. And we talk about this story of me being earning my first associate's degree, right, at age 20, at 36, but in 11 years or so, having 5 college degrees and a Ph.D. Graduating at the top of my class, finishing my Ph.D., dual Ph.D. in less than 2 years, which is unbelievable. But I tell you, that's not really the story. The story is that I don't often talk about is that when I first enrolled in 2-year college at a community college, it actually took me 12 years to earn my first associate's degree. So what really kind of is a driver for me, and I really try to impress upon our faculty and staff, is that we have to do more with student retention. I say because I am one of the fortunate ones, again, 12 years to get the first associate's degree. But also, I impressed in terms of just my personal philosophy as I lead our college, that let's not forget who we're serving. Try to reimagine, I say to our faculty and staff, try to reimagine yourselves in the lives of the students. As you walk across the campus, I say to our faculty and staff, can you see yourselves in the students' eyes?
I think that is brilliant.
Well, again, it's about making sure we stay connected, because I say, again, and this is not to undermine or any other type of institution, but we who serve at community colleges are doing tremendous work. And we do the heavy lifting before students transfer, before they get jobs in the workplace. And I think it takes, and you are a seasoned college president of a 2-year college, you get it. What we do is really noble work. And we never forget that.
You know, you're absolutely right. You have to maintain those connections. And I say it's brilliant because sometimes, you know, people tend to think that whatever you come up with that is extraordinary is what becomes brilliant. or something that Einstein developed is, yes, that is brilliant, but it's also brilliant when you can maintain that human touch with individuals. And many times people are able to rise in the hierarchy and they lose that. And that is what is so regrettable. And in the work at your college, and that I am doing, and that others who feel that sense of helping to lift others as you climb, to be so critically important, to be relatable. And I love it. And on the wall behind you, that also reflects how you maintain that connection to your faculty and staff. So tell us just a bit about your wall.
This is the wall. And all of our faculty and staff know it. Every convocation or anytime I speak to the college, which is frequently, by the way, I encourage them, and we have a culture here, well, the President's Wall. Behind me are 100 photos, by the way, that I hung by myself when I first got here. They were empty. And I use dental floss and car keys to hang them, but I pride myself on being a modern MacGyver, but that's a whole nother story. So I encourage our faculty and staff to send me photos of their family. No, I don't want stage photos, but send me things that are important to them. Steve Arnold behind me was on a fishing trip. I think he was over the lip. I didn't say that, but with fish. And there are puppies and there are grandkids, and Brooklyn, who's 9 years old, came by one weekend and in the office and did some hand designs for me. And we have Chloe, who was 6 years old and missing her first tooth. Her dad sent me the photos. So to me, you spoke about the human element. I have often been called the people's president, because I believe that it's important to be a humanistic leader, and never forget that. And as we think about the importance of working with students, our faculty and staff are human beings also. We have to make sure that they are equally 100% important to us as well.
That is so true. So how is your college continuing to serve the diverse populations of students, the high schools, how you're working with the businesses, the working adults, and the general academic students?
Oh, we are really doing a tremendous job. Well, first of all, we've created a shared vision. And when I got here 5 years ago, my goal was to create a shared vision, and simply, but not in lip service, right? So what we did, we put out billboards, we did things on social media, and we actually went into the community and our neighborhood associations and churches and everywhere and say, hey, look, tell us, how do you want Lamar Institute of Technology to look for the next 5 years? So in fact, we'll be submitting to the board a new 5-year strategic plan based on this, where they told us exactly what's important to them. And in short, that is growth and excellence. So in terms of our job placement rates, we're in the 90th percentile. LIT is classified as #1 in the state of Texas in terms of the salary outcomes for its students. And lastly, we have most recently been voted one of the best places to work in Southeast Texas, because I really want to go the extra mile to make sure we take care of our employees.
That's very, very important. I think, to focus on that and to get the community input is vitally important. So Dr. Howard, we will take another break. And when we return, we will continue our discussion with you, because there is more to discuss as we look to the future. And that's what I'd like for us to focus on. So please stay with us.
There's no better place to knock out the basics than HCC. Whether you learn online, on campus, or both, HCC is the safe, flexible, affordable option. Register now at hccs.edu/college your way.
Welcome back to Credential Up Houston. Our guest is Dr. Lonnie L. Howard, President of the Lamar Institute of Technology in Beaumont, Texas. Dr. Howard, it's such a great pleasure visiting with you today. And I'm wondering, as you look to the future, we know all of the difficulties that COVID-19 has caused for everyone throughout the world, and particularly in the education community. Students cannot go back to their classrooms. Many of the students now are either enrolled in remote learning or fully online learning. And then there are seniors who want to get an education, and some of them are not able to make that adjustment, that pivot to the use of the technology. So tell us about how you're handling that crisis at your institution, and what do you see as the future of education?
That is a very interesting question. I will start with your first part in terms of the COVID-19 crisis. And indeed, it is a crisis. I think for all of us in higher education, particularly at the two-year college level, as you're aware, it is impacting enrollment in just very negative ways. Most of the data, as you know, Dr. Ford Fisher suggests that most two-year colleges are down. But fortunately, because of our shared vision that I spoke about earlier, and some really forward thinking and some innovative things, our enrollment is actually up this fall 14%. And in fact, to that point, since being college president here at LIT for the 5 years, we've never had an enrollment decline. And so, but what we've done really is quite innovative. We've kind of went back to the simplicity of engaging the community. So we have had enrollment pushes where we've gone out again to a supermarket. In fact, I've been out giving out gift cards to our faculty and staff who have participated in those endeavors. But for me, and I tell our faculty and staff, we have to remove ourselves from this notion of, well, it's a percentage. Well, we're up 14%, now we're down. These are human beings, right? Our students are, and they need us. Never before in our human history, because of COVID-19, have students needed higher education the most. Well, in fact, one of the things that I've done, and I am so grateful to our foundation, I petitioned our foundation for $500,000 to provide 1 year free or reduced tuition to our students. And our foundation stepped up in a course of 2 days to make those funds available. So what we've done here is leverage those dollars against federal dollars, and now students who have been unemployed, recent high school graduates, or underskilled, we're able to provide them a year's worth of education.
This is commendable. So are these students face-to-face or are they online? And how did you access the technology for those students who did not have perhaps internet access or computers, et cetera?
And that's a great question also. Well, in fact, initially when we shut down for at the governor's request, we did provide hotspots in our parking lots, and we provided some additional technology. But fortunately, we have been able to return. And what we do here at LIT, we have optional type of instructional modalities, but for the most part, we're face-to-face. But we are taking our employees and the students' safety in hand. Everyone gets wristbands. We check temperatures, obviously the deep cleaning and social distancing. So we are kind of going above and beyond what's even expected. And are having really good results with that.
Well, congratulations on all fronts. And you made reference to having gone to the foundation board and having worked with your board of your board of the institution. and there were some innovations that were made. What were some of those innovations?
Well, in addition to, again, providing 1 year free and reduced tuition, but again, we are primarily a technical college. So can you imagine, we've got really creative. Can you imagine trying to teach a welding class online, right? So what
I'm wondering about that. Please tell us. How did you do that?
Well,
did you get a simulation or
yes,
virtual?
ma'am. And our faculty even came in out during weekends and the evenings, and they pre-recorded welding demonstrations and they loaded it into Blackboard. So we did a lot of those things. We recently also had a virtual convocation where we actually served a physical lunch. And so we are really doing some exciting things here. They're really trying to kind of navigate ourselves. Oh, yes, ma'am. I have a great team, and they are really, really, we give innovation awards, right? $1,000 for individuals who come up with innovative ideas on how to cope during these times.
You know, I'm so excited about what you're saying. I mean, I'm sorry to interfere or to interrupt with what your message is to us because it's so exciting. But I'm wondering about that virtual lunch, Dr. Howard. How did you?
Well, no, the convocation itself was our virtual.
Ah.
We had a central place, a central repository where faculty social distancing everyone's still on campus, but they came by a certain spot. We had lunches already pre-placed in certain buildings where they could pick their lunches up. So, but everything else was virtual. But we have gotten rave reviews about that. And we had virtual spin the wheels. We had games, we had music, everything was done virtually. And I gave the state of the college virtually. So it was a lot of fun. And we just had that October 19th.
Congratulations to you again. I'm just really thrilled. And I guess you got no pushback whatsoever from your faculty. And
oh, absolutely not. In fact, I've received only a lot of accolades. Hey, look, can we do this again? In fact, someone even said when COVID-19 is over, let's just move to this format moving forward. So they really loved it.
Very good. So what do you envision as the next steps for your institution?
We just have to do more. We have to do more because there are still people who are hurting. We have to do more because there are still single moms out there who feel a sense of hopelessness. We have to do more because there are still the underserved, the underskilled. We have to do more because there are rural populations who might not have the technology or the resources. We have to do more because there are still young people in high schools who they're coming up on graduation, they don't know what the next step. We have to do more because there are still people who feel a sense of hopelessness. What I envision for LIT is for LIT to remain a neighborhood college, but to have a statewide footprint because we don't have a service area. We don't collect ad valorem taxes. So I see for the vision of LIT, having these small, remote satellite campuses across the state of Texas.
That sounds like a big vision, and I wish you all the very, very best. Dr. Howard, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Your message is so inspiring and instructive to all of us, particularly our students at this time. I want to thank you so much and wish you continued successes, not just to you, but to your college and to the communities that you serve. I also want to thank our viewers for watching. And insofar as possible, I'd like for you to remember that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Marcus Aurelius said, realize this, and you will find strength. So take good care of yourselves, and remember to Credential Up Houston. We'll see you again next time.